the stuff that we're doing now, we help people get into a project, sell one of the two properties out. They're left with a property that's got a really low LVR with strong cash flow, and then they're therefore ready to go and do something again straight away.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to the Property Developer Podcast. As always, it is wonderful to have you with me. I'm doing well and I hope you are too. I've got a great show for you as we speak with property developer Shane Hiscock about how he has grown a business that is doing $40 million worth of projects. Before we get to that, here's a quick update of what I've been up to. I'm looking at buying a site at the moment. I've pretty much done my initial due diligence and feel confident about the site, and the architect is confident on the number of townhouses we can get on there. The property is going to auction, so I'm not sure where the value will end up, and I'm just working on getting finance sorted for it. I've been in discussions with the agent to try and buy it before it goes to auction, and we are playing the usual games of teasing out numbers and details from each other. Obviously, I would prefer to secure it before the auction. I'll let you know how it goes. The townhouse project is bubbling along, party walls have gone up, and the roof trusses are going in. It's steady as she goes for now. So, today's guest is Shane Hiscock, a property developer doing multiple joint venture type projects with investors. Shane has grown his business from doing a one-house new build to having 20 projects underway. He has learned a lot about managing partners, setting up joint ventures, and the mindset you need to grow a developing business. And Shane shares 4 books that he thinks will help property developers take their business to the next level. I started off by asking Shane what food he would eat until he was sick.
Great one. My wife's lasagna.
Oh, I'm a fan of lasagna too.
Yeah. My wife is Italian, so she cooks an amazing lasagna, and when she does, I just eat it all week because she does it in a big batch. So yeah, I'll eat it for every lunch for the next 7 days. I'm fine with that, and dinner. So.
And is that with like a bechamel sauce or more a tomato-y sauce?
More of a bechamel sauce.
Ooh, yeah, you're talking my language.
Yeah.
No, I can eat lasagna as well till I'm not feeling very well. It fills you up.
It does. It does indeed.
It sits in your tummy for a while.
True.
So Shane, give us a little bit of a background about how you have become a property developer that's got multiple projects on the go.
So how that happened was I used to work for IBM. So I was in IT. When I finished uni, which I studied at in Wagga Wagga, country town in New South Wales, I did a business degree there and moved to the Big Smoke, to Sydney, and worked with IBM for, it was close to 10 years, but I moved as a part of that journey up to Brisbane. And but I guess it really dawned on me at one point when I was at an IT conference, where I'd flown back to Sydney for an IT conference for a few days, and I was sitting in there falling asleep thinking, this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And, that was the first thing that dawned on me. And the second thing was I'm never going to be wealthy if I keep doing this either. So I pretty much made a decision then in that conference that I was going to make a change in my life. And at the time, my boss, he was down there for the conference as well. So I called him up and said, can we have breakfast in the morning? And can we meet early, 7 o'clock? And that's what we did. We were in the Rocks kind of area. I remember it very clearly. I was quite nervous, but I basically walked in and sort of said, look, his name is John. I said, John, I've decided I'm going to resign and I'll be leaving IBM in 12 months' time. And he went, right, okay, what are you going to do? I said, look, John, I don't really know, but it'll have something to do with property. All I do know is that I can't keep going in this direction because, we were at the time about to start a family. So I guess what I felt was I've got a few years then before my, first, happens to be now my first daughter, before she would be starting school, and I'd prefer to sort of have a shot at things and see how I go before she starts school and my income becomes more, I guess, important to be stable and reliable. So, so that's what we did. and really from there, it was a matter of left IT and people started to ask me to help them buy property. So they started to say, oh, look, we're going to go and buy this property over here. What do you think we can do with it? So I'd give them a hand and help them out. But also, I guess, probably backpedal a little bit there, is the way I was able to leave was that I pretty much went and targeted completing a development project and making a certain amount of money so that I could leave. I decided if I had 100K in the bank, that would be enough for me to give things a shot. So that's kind of what we did, and worked on a project. Pulled out at that point enough equity 12 months later to fund that, and then that's what made the move.
So, because you never did renovations, did you? You just went straight into doing developments?
Correct. I started trying to find renovations, so I spent a lot of time, as they say, going to every open house and picking a few suburbs, narrow it down to a few, get to be an expert in that area, go to everything, which is what I did. But what I found was, first things first, I'm not handy, so it's really, I don't know if it's the right idea to sort of go do something that you're not really skilled at or like, So I'm like, well, I'm not going to really be there sort of swinging a hammer and painting and tiling things. So that was probably up against me to start with. And the second point was in that particular suburb, which in Brisbane, it was a suburb called Zilmere, which I was focusing on for a period of time, mostly because the price point was sort of that 380, 400K, you could buy a house there. So to me, renovation seemed, and I think probably to most people, like a good entry point. But using the sort of standard formulas that run around the place that you learn, you need to sort of sell that house for, say, 530K if you spend 10% on the renovation to make any kind of profit out of it. And I just couldn't find anything that was selling in that suburb for 530K. It was near impossible to find. So I've since learnt that obviously if you want to do reno, if you find a suburb with a larger delta between the low and high prices, it helps. But no, I got a few under contract. I investigated a few. I made loads and loads of offers, but eventually was sort of drawn to a block of land in a very small sort of 12-lot subdivision in a suburb in Brisbane, and bought a block there and built a house, and that's sort of my first project really. So yeah.
That's similar to me. I never did renovations. I just thought, I don't want to spend my time doing that. Just jump straight into developments.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. I mean, and some people are really great at it. Like they really love cruising around, finding the best deals for various different things and being on the ground there, and sort of it's a real high-paced environment, I think, high intensity to sort of get in, get out. And that's great. It's just, I think it's always a good thing for investment strategy to actually pick something that's sort of aligned with what you enjoy as well.
Yeah, I remember being at work in a similar position to you where I decided that I needed to move on and do something differently or start working on something different. I remember asking for a pay rise at work, and I think it was for about $1,500. And I had to write a brief to convince my superiors that I should get this pay rise, and I spent all this time writing this brief and coming up with all the reasons why I added extra value, and it got knocked back in the end. And I thought, I'm going to end up getting paid $100 more, and it got knocked back, and my life and future is kind of at the mercy of other people if I stay here being self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that being one of those points in time where I rode home from work that night going, I've got to take charge of this, take charge of my life.
Yeah, that's great. Good story. Yeah.
So, and now $1,500, it doesn't seem like a lot of money.
Yeah, totally.
Some of the bills that you have to pay when you're a developer.
Yeah, it pales into comparison, but I hear there for you though, it's more about, and for a lot of people I think that get into this, is about the freedom, the ability to actually create your own scenario and situation in life rather than be sort of delegated to and I guess, or dictated to, I guess. Where I felt my parents were a little surprised. Well, they were very surprised. They didn't know I planned to leave IBM, which in their eyes was just the best thing ever. It's, we were taught, get a great job with a secure company, and there you go, you're sort of set for life. So they were a little shocked. But I said to them, look, I think it's more risky actually for me to stay here, because things like you said there, but also there were sort of various stages of retrenchments and redundancies happening, and you really, to some extent can just be out of your control. A whole division could get purchased by, a takeover or a merger or something like that, and then roles change and it's, sorry, we don't need these guys anymore. And I actually felt less secure in an employed, paid, salaried role than I now feel outside of that. So.
And what skills do you think you brought from IBM or that you picked up in your IT role that applied being a developer?
I think IBM's education programs were really good, which took me a while to actually recognise because I'd sort of gone from uni into a world-class organisation with world-class training and that kind of thing, and hadn't realised it until a fair way after it. But my roles in IBM were all business development style roles. So I was always out building networks, talking with people, creating sort of partnerships and strategic alliances. And I think it's very similar to what you need to do in development. You need to be out building teams that are helping you create a result. And as a salesperson at IBM, where you're selling a solution, a service-based solution, where you're trying to get a result for a company, it's very similar. You're assembling, creating a solution and a vision and a proposal for that, and then assembling a team of, in the IT case, there's a project manager, there's a solutions architect, there's technicians, there's all sorts of people that form that team to help deliver that project. And property development's very similar. So I think it helped in that sense, just being in that environment. Being in business development environment means you're out there consistently turning over stones and chasing business and that sort of stuff, which when you're in property development, to find the next project and the next deal, that's consistently what you need to do. So I think it taught me a lot of behaviours that transferred over quite well into property development.
So can you tell us then how you go out? You just mentioned that you go out and you try and find deals and you're talking to people. Yep. What are the kind of things that you're doing to find deals and partners for your developments now?
Well, I have to say now I think a lot of them find us a lot more than we find those deals. But in the early phases, it's very much you just consistently on the phone with real estate agents, and often doing, say, letterbox drops, or there's just, you kind of do a myriad of things. What I found has worked for us mostly is through agents, which might surprise a lot of people, but it was building strong relationships with agents and them getting to know that we're going to be around for a long time and that we're here to actually sort of work together and help each other out, and respecting and trusting the agents. That's been the strongest supplier of deals for us, really. And I think that probably, now I didn't connect the links before, that probably has been helped by IBM. My role in IBM in a lot of ways was building channels, building partnerships. So we would have 20 or 30 resellers of our equipment there, that it was my job to help them sell that equipment and to build partnerships with them. So I guess in a way it's similar to having that network of real estate agents that know who you are, what you're after, that you have integrity and you respect them, and being able to then move fast when things come up. That's been the keys for us in sort of finding deals.
Yeah, well, from their perspective, they just want to get a deal done themselves, don't they? They want to sell a property as quickly and as efficiently as they can. That's how they get paid ultimately.
Yep, totally. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when it's a really hot market, they might not want to put it out onto the world's, the internet and have everyone see it, because it creates a lot of work. It's a lot of work in that. If you've got a really good property and you put it up on the internet and you've got to field 100 calls and then call back 99 people who weren't successful, and deal with that. That's a lot of work, when often they can put it to a small group of people and get it sold. So that's where we aim to be, that small group of people that move fast and buy the good sites when we can. And
so how do you get ready to be able to move quickly? Do you prepare a project or an investment group and then look to strike, or do you find the deal and then try and put it together?
We do a little bit of both, but the majority is we form not necessarily a group. It's usually just partnering up with other people, one or two other people. Often it's a married couple or that sort of thing, and we really get clear on, I guess, if they're bringing the money to the table, we get clear on the finance capacity and what capital have we got to work with, and then what borrowing capacity are we working with, and we understand then from that roughly the types of projects that we can go and complete with that sort of funding behind it, and then we go specifically looking for those sorts of deals. So that means, as soon as we find something there, we can move really quickly.
Can you share with us a bit of the history from what you've been doing project-wise to where you are now? Because you've got multiple projects on at the moment, but can you just share with us how you've gotten to where you are and also what you're doing today, project-wise?
Yep, totally. So we did that project, as I mentioned, which was this buy the block of land and house build. That was sort of the first project. It was really aimed at me learning how construction works. So I thought we'll just build a single house. While that was happening, I formed a group with two other people, and we put some funds together and went and bought a splitter block. So that's, I'm not sure if you have that. I guess it's a Brisbane sort of a thing, a Queensland thing, which is a block which, in this case, has two lots, but one title. So it's not a subdivision. It's actually something where you just need to go and split the titles with the titles office. But we bought that with the intention actually to just hold on to it, wait for the capital to grow, then go buy another one, and it's just to start to build up a portfolio. But various things happened, like the global financial crisis. And that meant that block was then losing money every year, basically. So we developed our way out of it. And then from there, I started to help other people, like team up with other people to go and find development deals. So after that one, we went and found another similar to that. And then, so each, I just sort of started to build from there. And I did a number of splitter blocks. Started to then, and somewhere we just sold the land, and then started to sort of buy them and sell the land and then build one house. Then we went to building two houses, and we just gradually built up. I know at one point I used to sort of say, oh, we'll just do two projects at a time. That's all I felt I could handle. And then I had someone else join our business, and then we were like, okay, so all of a sudden we're doing four. And then we sort of just blew our own, I guess, mindsets out of the water there, and just went, well, that's ridiculous. We can do much more than two at a time. And that was more just about being cautious, making sure we delivered them, making sure that there was profit, that they worked, and there's so many unknowns when you're just starting out doing projects around, build costs, and are you actually going to get the final sales number that you're projecting, and there's a whole lot there, especially in a flat market. Like a market that's not really doing anything. It's fine when a market's rising. You can jump in, do a development. By the time you're finished, everything's gone up, a reasonable amount of money. And it might, so that might help you go well. But in the flat market, we just wanted to test all that out. And then just probably in the last, from there, splitters, next one was a small what we call LMR site, and up here the LMR is the zoning, and that means low to medium residential, which means you can put units or townhouses onto the site. So that was our next project. We did a small one of those where there was a house on a corner lot, and we could put two townhouses on the back. So it was a smaller one, but it was kind of quite a big step, because from splitter blocks and that kind of thing, it meant you had to go through the development approval process, which is where you come up with the designs, lodge them into council assess it, and you approve it, and then you've got to go through the building approval process to get everything correctly documented, ready to build. And so it was another step, I guess. It was a gradual step, but a big one in terms of knowledge and learning and how long these things take. So we did that one. Then we sort of jumped from there into 9 units, because the process is effectively the same, the DA process, the building approval process, and then what's called the operational works process, which is your sewer and water and all your stormwater designs and all that sort of stuff. so we moved into that, and then sort of from there, I guess confidence was building, and at one point, and I think it was about sort of about 3 years ago, I kind of went, well, let's crank it up, let's get a bit serious about this and let's get it moving. So then I think in 1 year we picked up 8 or 9 projects and started to sort of diversify in terms of the types of projects and the areas that we were in as we started to become more knowledgeable across like a large area of Brisbane. So we kind of focus on the 10, 12K ring. But over that time, in looking at FISOs and numbers for lots of different suburbs, you get to know them, pretty well and understand sales figures and prices. And then in the last sort of couple of years, just sort of wound it up again a little bit more, and now running 20 projects with, anything from a 1 into 4 lot subdivision to sort of 4 townhouses, 5 townhouses. We're not really doing many units. We've got one more block of units to complete. But I feel Brisbane, is headed for an oversupply situation in the unit market, and that's been on the horizon for a year at least, I would think. You could sort of see that coming. But our focus now is really in more the owner-occupier stock, which it actually, if I think about it, always has been. I've always preferred to do stuff that we're selling to owner-occupiers. I think it's a consistent flow of people. Plus, you can also put a bit more of your own design sort of ideas and flair into it and create something quite nice. It's a lot of luxury homes in there, townhouses, and that's really the bulk of what we're doing now. So there's about 63 odd properties in that sort of 20 projects in total, and that's where we're up to. So,
wow, that's pretty impressive. 20 projects on the go at one time.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, I got to tell you.
How do you manage that?
We've just put on a project manager, so that's really going to help because it's been quite a handful to manage. But along the way, obviously, we try and build processes and procedures into things as much as possible, and also try and standardise teams that we work with as much as we can, just to reduce the amount of duplication and workload. So we kind of, nailed down a building designer that we like to work with, and they produce plans and those sorts of things really quickly for us, good designs at sort of less than an architect's price point, and also far faster, like they're a lot faster. So then with that, we've nailed down the town planner, the surveyors, the soil, all the team is pretty much nailed down to, pick one of a couple. Probably the biggest time consumers, I think, for us are selecting builders, because there's not one builder that can do all of that, and get the best price, because I often find getting that best price for that builder means you've got to work really closely with them, you've got to work really closely with design, you've got to sort of, drive efficiencies into it as much as you can, and it's sort of, it's interesting. In terms of builders, they tend to specialise with their thing, which I can totally understand. So you'll have a house builder that just does sort of a certain spec level, and that's his suppliers, they're his people he goes to, and that allows him to be efficient. Whereas when we start moving into different suburbs, different sized houses, types of houses, we've got to find a different builder with a different spec level or build our own. So how we handle it is we also use a CRM system, which, all the projects are in there. As a team, we have a weekly project call. We run through everything and where it's up to, what's next, who's doing what. So we've managed things that way. And I think now, though, we're just getting to the point of that's being revised. So we're just revising now how we manage the projects and the process, and also, as I mentioned, bring on the project manager, which will help us bring a bit more, I think, a more procedure into it and a better focus on the Gantt chart, which is the timelines. So we really, and Brisbane's experienced quite a construction boom in the last 12 months. So the guys that I've found hardest to sort of nail down have been the civil contractors, civil construction, because they're the guys you need to get a site started, because you need to get your sewer and water services in, but they've also not had a lot of work in the last 5 years. So now it's like, for them, it's like drinking from a fire hose. They just, I'll take it. Give me more work, and they just overload themselves and just take on a lot of work, and then they just sort of beg for forgiveness. So it's sort of like, we should be there next week. Yeah, it should be done next week. Yeah, and that's where we found a lot of drag out has happened. But anyway, that's part of bringing the project manager on. He can manage that a whole lot better and take me out of the day-to-day running of projects is the goal, so that I can go secure more deals, focus on the marketing side of the projects as well, and just focus on the strategy of building the business also. So.
And with the stakeholders, which I'm guessing are your investors that you bring on, so I think you mentioned whether they're couples or small groups or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
It must be difficult managing that many stakeholders.
Correct.
So what do you do to keep them informed and manage their expectations?
We tend to have regular meetings with the stakeholders and just give them regular updates on where things are up to as much as we can. It is hard to sort of manage and update every single sort of step every week. However, once a month is a pretty reasonable thing to be able to do. And often they're across things to a certain degree anyway, because they're sort of paying the invoices and they're signing fee proposals as well and stuff like that. So they're kind of knowing, to some extent where things are up to and what's happening. So that's about how that goes.
So you must have become something of a bit of a joint venture expert. So what kind of process or procedures have you put in place for screening people that you partner up with?
We tend to spend a fair bit of time before kicking anything off with anybody. And I think probably the biggest thing that we've put in place is just being transparent. So it's not trying to sell anything. Like we have the thing where we say we don't sell anything. We just show you how this thing works and how it runs. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. That's totally up to you. But in that approach, you can be totally transparent with regards to how a project's going to work. And when you're totally transparent, we can say, look, things are going to go wrong. Things will slip. Things may be more expensive sometimes. They may be less expensive sometimes. But you really then, I guess, in a way, understanding a person's personality in these initial meetings to see how they react to those sorts of things. So we're really transparent. We show example projects. We show real numbers, real spreadsheets, real timelines, and we sort of go, this is how long it could take. This is the target, and also we really stress test a lot of the deals as well. So, all of the deals, but we show the partners how we find the break-even point in a deal and share that. This is what this deal looks like. This is how it would break even. Here's like a low ball kind of low estimate, a middle estimate, and a high estimate. So we really, I think in these first couple of meetings that we have, by being transparent, we're establishing, I guess, the way that we would work together. We're also getting people to be ready for the fact that things will change, and things do happen that you don't expect, and there's always going to be things that you actually cannot predict. So we're running through that. We're also sort of explaining the process of how we work. So, we will be explaining, well, when this proposal comes in or when this decision has to be made, our approach is going to be based on, we're always going to be focused on what's the end result we're trying to get, removing emotion from it and personal preference. So we're sort of upfront sort of, framing that as to how we're going to make decisions and move forward. And I guess, I think it's mostly about being open. Roles and responsibilities, I guess, is a clear thing to cover off in the early phases as well. What is our role? What will we be covering? What we'll be doing? What's their role? How can we both make sure we move things along quickly? With the deals, typically we're showing a cash flow as well. So we're saying, look, all funds, you want to have all funds into a deal at the start, and this is the reason why. So we'll take people through that and explain that that allows the deal to keep going. If it doesn't have the funds in there, it can't run. You can't breathe. It will stop. Things will go wrong. But if it also has all the funds in there and we've actually allowed for buffers and overruns and timeframes, then it means that the emotional side of things can be taken from the deal, because that's where I find the biggest conflict is people get emotional and something happens, they get upset about it. failing to resort back to what's the end result that we're trying to get to. Can we still get there or close to it? Then that's I guess how we've been approaching things.
So with those roles and responsibilities, how do you divide up, or the decision making, I guess, would be the most important part, because you want to keep things moving along, and making decisions quickly, I find, is an important part of delivering a successful project.
Yep.
So how do you, I guess, maintain control of the key decision making and be able to make that quickly, or do you need to consult?
Well, we've key decision making, generally we consult, but it depends, I guess, on what's the if there's a financial impact, then we'll need to have a chat about it. If it's going to cost more, then we do justify, or we do need to have a conversation about that and get it answered as quickly as possible. And that's really it's all about communication, and it's really about, well, here's a key decision. We'll email, we'll text, and we'll call, and to say, look, this is a key decision that needs to be acted upon quickly to keep things moving. And if it's not, then obviously we just give it its relevant priority. If they're small on-site decisions that need to be made, which they often do, you're in the middle of construction and builder will call you. He'll say, look, this doesn't work as per the plan. Do you mind if we do it this way? And really there's no real impact to, the saleability of the product. There's no cost impact. There's no real need to consult anybody. So yeah, I guess it just depends on the decision, but generally it's consultative, and especially when there's financial sort of ramifications to it.
And what about exit strategies? What about if it either all goes wrong, or how do you plan for getting out of the deal?
Yeah, we do. We look at the multiple exit strategies at the very start. So we come up with usually a various ways to sort of how the deal could go, and agree on, I guess it's more about, again, it's more of a consultative type approach. But if it's I'm trying to think of some different projects here. Let me think. 'Cause, a lot of the stuff that we've been doing has been based around, let's build it and sell them all. But we'll also, when we're discussing that project up front, before even going and finding a project for a person or with somebody else, we'll sort of say, well, what are your goals? So it all comes back to that as well. What are their goals initially? And then if it is to build a portfolio, they do want to keep some properties, then it's a matter of actually putting that exit strategy onto a feasibility up front as well, and deciding with the project that you do find, eventually you find this project, look, do you want to sort of keep a couple of these, or do you want to just sell them all, or what is it? And it's probably relevant here. So a lot of the projects that we're doing, or most that we're doing at the moment, it's in the partners, it's in their entity and their buying name. So it's effectively, I guess you'd say it's not technically a joint venture, although we're doing a profit share with these guys. So we just kind of leave it to, well, if you want to keep a couple at the end, then we need to just get them valued and work out what the equity gain's been, and then we do the share on the equity gain. Or if you sell them, then that's the end result. So yeah, so we do look at those sort of options early on.
That was going to be my next question about how you get paid or how it works. I presume that you charge some sort of project management fee and then some kind of profit sharing at the end.
Yeah, and look, this is all I'm just reviewing this at the moment as to how we do that, because it's been working, I think, for partners, but not so well for us. So it's something that we're a licensed real estate agency, so we act as a buyer's agent. So we have a payment for finding a site. But I guess if you were two JV partners together and you decide to do a project, you're more likely going to pay a buyer's agent, or possibly someone else who brings you a site anyway. So we see that as still something that stays in place. And then generally we've been doing a profit share along the way with some monthly payment as well as the project management fee. So that's still pretty much remained the same. We're just adjusting a few things. But
why are you tweaking it? What about it isn't working for you?
What about it isn't working for us is the percentages that we've been sharing based on the kind of results we've been able to achieve and the value that we're bringing. So there's an extreme amount of skill, I believe, that's involved in actually firstly finding a deal that you can make work and then actually making it work. And I guess this is a lesson in my own that I've really just gotten in the last few weeks in my own value and self-worth. And it's been, I've seen that our abilities and skills are far more valuable than we've been charging for. And actually that's no disrespect to the people that have worked with us so far. We've needed to go through that journey. However, if we continued charging what we charge, we won't have a business. So we just can't do it anymore. That's the reason for the change. Yeah.
And are you willing to share what that profit split is, percentage-wise, or
what it was, or what it will be?
Well, I guess what it is now, or what it was. Yeah, you don't need to share what it's going to be.
Well, we were giving 70% of the profit to the partner.
Okay.
So an example of that is we just finished a project and the partner's cash contribution was around 280K and their profit was 140 on top of that. For their role was to obviously pay the bills and sign the checks and that sort of stuff. If you looked at that over the life of a project, it's maybe 10, 20 hours of work. And yes, there's a value to money. However, that's like a 40, 50% return on cash, which is pretty fantastic. And the skill and knowledge and resources that we've had to build up to be able to achieve that has taken me sort of 7 years. And I feel that as the people finding that project and running that project, that our share of that project should be higher.
Yeah, well, my immediately thought is it should be higher because I know what's involved with having to do all the work.
Yeah, and I think that's something that unless you've done it, you don't realise how much is involved. It's all made out to be easy, and you just hire a few people and do this project. However, that's not really the case. There's a lot of work involved in these things. A lot of work. Yeah,
absolutely, more than 30% in my view.
Yeah, totally. So, and that's why we're changing that. And so far, no one's got a problem with that. I think it was not the people that we've engaged with or spoken with, Dave. It was always just what we'd offered up. So it was really just our own self-worth and our own value. And I think early on, I felt that, we needed to build up some more, build up skill knowledge. We need to build up runs on the board and, bring clients on. But I think now after completing 18 projects, all of them successful, that we've got the runs on the board now. And obviously we've got another 20 projects to come. So by the time they're delivered, that's 38 projects that we've run, from go to woe, like all parts of it. So, and I guess I sat back and looked at it and went, as a development business, what we've created is a $45 million business with a blended sort of profit of $5 or $6 million across that, and we're getting a very small share of that because we've been paid along the way. But you need to eat and you still need to live. But we would say we pay us along the way, and that comes off our profit share. So effectively, the 30% profit share that we're getting at the end of a lot of the projects, especially if they run over a little bit, they're still being profitable, but we're getting 10, 15% at the end, which is not really sustainable as a model. And I looked at that and go, well, if you look at some pretty reasonable sized development companies around the place, a $40, $50 million company is effectively what we've built with 3 people. So I guess our focus now is to sort of do more projects where we've got a larger share in it, and also seek out a larger funding partner and a larger backer. Whereas, I look at that and go, if we have a larger backer that comes in and works with us across the projects, it de-risks the whole business, because the reliance on any one particular project always going well is removed a little, because it's a blend. Whereas we're doing every project with a different investor. If anything goes wrong, then that could that's dangerous. Touch wood, it's all gone well. However, if you're a large company, and I've got mates that are bigger developers who have lots of experience in this game, and they go, some projects go well, some don't. And we had one last year that didn't go as well, and I paid for it personally to make sure the investor got everything back, every single piece of money back. And it was nothing due to our own fault, but it was just me preserving my own integrity and the integrity of the business. However, it hurt. So anyway, it's exciting times. I think we're going to change the model and move forward, and still work with partners and just do it in a way that's more equally beneficial.
Excellent. Well, I know you're a big believer in mindset and working on yourself, or you're doing some professional development.
Totally. Yeah.
Can you share with us how you've gone from a one-man band doing a splitter block to someone that's got a $40 million turnover?
I realised fairly early on in the piece when after I quit my job, and I was looking at a lot of different properties and I guess reverse engineering a lot of deals, and I was seeing that people, whatever strategy you picked, there was someone making money out of it somewhere. So, if you picked renovation, like we spoke about earlier, maybe I wasn't the guy making any money out of it, but somebody was. There were people around who were making good money out of that. There was people who made good money out of subdivisions, people who could make good money from development, people who had built up significant buy and hold portfolios from buying good buy and hold properties at the right times of cycles. Any strategy can work. And I found then that the common denominator across all things was myself and the way I thought. So I pretty much focused then on just continually, learning more about my mind and how my brain works and how my thinking works and what drives success, how successful people think. And that resulted in just doing a lot of different personal development programs. And I, continue to this day to do a few programs a year. I just got back from Bintan Island off the coast of Singapore for 10 days where that was a personal development type, getaway, I guess, as well, where it took the whole family as well. But it's, it was in a luxurious place, a resort lifestyle, to really embrace the abundance, I guess, mentality as well. But yeah, mindset's a big thing for me. And I'd say 80-90% of the books I've read in the last 5 or 6 years are all about mindset, and it's something that I realised early on. If I was trying to go out and find deals and just telling myself a story that there are no deals and they're hard to get, then that was just going to be what I would find. So I went about, how do I adjust how I think? How do I need to think to be successful? How do I need to think to be motivated and driven to go out there and find a deal? How do I need to think to get back up when I get knocked down? Because, there's a few knockdowns early on. I lost some money in early projects. You got to be able to get up and keep going from these things. So in terms of, how do we go from 1 or 2 to 40 mil worth, it's been a gradual step thing where you one thing that also builds confidence and momentum is getting results. So, small wins, complete a project, make some money. Yeah, cool, we can do that. Get on to the next one. It's just natural thing for us to actually, move forward when we believe we can. Because that I guess that's a key thing you find is there's a few comments and sayings around. One of them's, you'll only ever act up until your beliefs. So you can set any sort of big goals, and there's a lot of things out there that say go and set a big goal and stretch yourself and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, if you don't in deep down believe that, you won't take action toward it. And I'm sure plenty of people have tried that before. I'll set this really big goal. That's what's sort of said out there in the world that you should do. And then if you ultimately don't believe it, then you just won't go for it. So then it comes back to, well, how do I change my beliefs? And there's a whole bunch of methods to obviously do that, and some of it's about achieving as well. Achieving results helps you change your belief. There's I've studied and become a trainer and practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, so you can actually kind of rewire your brain as to how you think, and done a lot of things in that way that have helped me, I guess, improve my knowledge of myself and awareness, help me pick big goals, go for them.
I wondered why you'd kept mirroring my movements.
It's not conscious now.
I kept scratching my right eyebrow and you kept following me.
It's all good, right? It all helps, all this stuff.
Oh, look, so much of your success in life is between your ears.
Mm-hmm.
What you believe is what you achieve.
That's it. And I look at it and go, if one person can do it, anyone can do it. And that's how I look at the business now. And that's how I go, oh, hey, look at the size of the business that we're building. And then a lot of now is about, like, the start of this year was about surround myself with people who are well ahead of where I want to be, like of where I want to be. So, I've joined some organisations and things where there's people in there running $100 million businesses. And it's like, well, these are the guys I want to learn from now. Like, these are the people I need to go and hang out with. These are the people that, because the more you immerse yourself in that and you realise that guy that's turning over 100 mil or 200 mil or whatever in his company, he sort of puts his pants on one leg at a time just like you do. And he started at the start just like you did. And he started not knowing anything and he started just rolling with the punch. It just builds that, hey, I can do this. Like, we're all the same. Like, we all sort of inherently have this, generally same level of abilities and skills. And, you don't have to be smarter than anybody else. You don't have to be, more degrees or qualified than anybody else. Like, that's just not true. So I think surrounding yourself with those people is a key. That's a key strategy, I guess, I'm focusing on this year, is to get around the people that have had the success. So
yes, and one of my favourite sayings is, if you want to soar like an eagle, don't hang around with turkeys.
Yeah, I like that one. That's good.
I use that one quite often when I'm talking with my other developer friends.
That's fantastic. I like it.
But that applies to even people in your team, people that you've got providing support, consultants.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be either ahead of you or thinking big also.
Yep, I agree. I agree. If you surround yourself with it, then it's just going to happen, right? It's going to cause it.
I'm always fascinated by mindset, particularly when I look at elite sports people, elite tennis players, for example, and how they just believe in themselves. And then when they get into really tight situations, how they're able to think their way through the pressure and play the big shot at that really critical time. And what must be going on inside their head? What are they thinking about? How am I going to get out of this situation? And believing deep down that they can.
Yeah, and totally. And that's the thing that I think inspires, is inspiring about those kind of guys. You just go, this person has a rock solid, unshakable, non-movable belief in themselves. And, a guy I started watching last year, which many people might know, Conor McGregor. Have you seen him from, he's in the UFC, the fighting, this guy, go grab some YouTube videos and watch Conor McGregor. If anyone's got like 100% bulletproof belief in themselves, it's this guy. And but he talks a lot about, and a lot of sports people talk a lot about visualizing as well. Seeing yourself having achieved that success, like already seeing yourself having done the thing that you want to do. And I think, like the tennis guys, they see themselves hitting that winning shot. There's studies that have been done on control groups, shooting basketball hoops, and one group for a week visualize themselves seeing it get through, who get it, 80% more through than the other group that doesn't. There's a whole bunch of things like that I think have been happening in sports for years that, happen in business, but I don't know that it gets talked about as much because it's probably seen as a bit woo-woo or whatever, but it works.
Yeah, well, what I've been doing this year is every day reading my goals before I get started each day. I'll open up what the goals are for the year and I'll just spend 5 minutes looking through them, and I find that's really helpful to keep me focused on what is it I want to get done this year and then also a couple of years out.
Yeah, that's great. I like it.
And then also having affirmations.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a list of affirmations that you got on your phone and you just listen to them in the morning or as you're walking around. That stuff seeps into your brain. Then you
Yeah,
start
it does,
believing
huh?
it.
Yeah.
You got any recommended books or interesting books that you've read lately that people might be interested in?
Yeah, I do. I'm always reading books. It's something that's a constant. So, the favorite one that I've just finished is called Leveraging the Universe by Mike Dooley. So, um, Mike Dooley is the guy who does the Notes from the Universe quotes. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a daily email that you get or quote that you get that sort of talks about leveraging the universe, funnily enough. But I love that book. It's fantastic. It's probably the biggest thing I got out of that is you hear a lot in the personal development circles, just worry about the why, don't worry about the how, which I used to always go, that's BS. How can you just sort of float around going, I know why I want something or what I want, and this is what I want, and not come up with any sort of plans to actually get it. Like, it doesn't just turn up. And he really explains that concept very well in that book and talks about actually making those plans and taking the actions. But I guess it's how you look at those plans and how you, what importance you place on them almost. He almost says you just got to take a lot of action in various different ways and don't be, I guess, attached to, this is the exact way how I'm going to reach my specific goal, but be open to the fact that various other things can happen and various other things most likely will happen, i.e. the universe, these chance coincidences that happen or these things that seem like luck or whatever is more about the fact that you're taking action in the direction of your goal and the universe will provide, as they say. So, cracking book, loved it.
Yeah, well,
Enjoyed some more?
I don't believe in luck.
Yeah,
I
there you
don't
go.
believe it
Great,
exists.
no luck. That's it.
I keep telling that to my wife. She shakes her head. Yeah. What others?
What else have we got? So, the Power of Your Subconscious Mind. That's a good book by Joseph Murphy. The title kind of says it all, but it's again about, I guess, training your subconscious mind. So I found that to be a really good book. Two good books to sort of, if you want some real proof about how you think creates what you achieve in life, are E Squared and E Cubed by Pam Grout. So those books they're really easy to read because they're both 9 energy experiments. So they're actual sort of experiments that you can do, out in the physical world to show how your awareness of things and how you think creates your reality. They're pretty cool books. What else? The other books are more probably a bit technical. So, and one I'm reading now is called Scaling Up, which is by a guy called Vern Harnish, and it's a book about the Rockefeller habits. So Rockefeller, the Rockefeller family built the biggest amount of wealth in the US I think that's ever been known. I think they say if you combine Buffett and Gates and these guys together, that would be about what the Rockefellers were worth. So this guy Vern Harnish sort of has distilled their success into a bunch of habits around business and what they've done in business, and it's a real technical book. It's almost like a checklist and a workbook, and it's got a whole bunch of things like 1-page business plans, and it's sort of focused on 4 parts of business: people, strategy, education, and cash. And it's really about how you scale. So it's how do you get from $1 million business to a 10 million? How do you get from 10 to 100? How do you get from 100 to 200? It's about that sort of thing. So that's that one, which is pretty cool. And
Sorry to interrupt, I actually read a biography of John D Rockefeller last year called
cool.
Titan. So if you want an inspiring book, that's quite a good one.
I might just check that out.
Yeah, he was an amazing guy. When Rockefeller built his empire, there was no personal income tax at the time.
Oh, great.
That's how come they were making millions and millions of dollars. At one stage, Standard Oil was doing something like 3 or 4% of America's GDP.
Wow, that's insane.
Most of that was going to John D Rockefeller and no income tax. That's why they've still got so much wealth to this day, because it all got put in trust, and they just had so much money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Pretty amazing story.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll check that book out. That sounds interesting.
All right. So what's ahead then for the future?
For the future, so we're kind of refocusing the business a little at the moment, so we can help people get into property a little earlier than the development stage. So, i.e., buying good, solid, buy and hold sort of properties. So we're sort of building the buyer's agency side of our business up. Because I realise a lot of the guys that we work with in development and partner with in development have made their cash and their capital by having good buy and hold properties that they've held for a number of years, and that's how they've come up with $500,000, $1 million equity, so they can actually go and do development. And so we're looking at that, thinking, well, if we can help a whole bunch of people buy some really good properties in Brisbane at the moment, because I think Brisbane's, our median price is still pretty low compared to the other states. There's still quite a lot of value here, and as a longer term view, buying one or two good properties in reasonable areas can help you build up that capital to be able to develop later. So we're expanding that part of the business, and then as I mentioned, we're still focusing on finding new development deals. So we are at the moment changing that profit split and just working on that model. And as well, for me now, it's about, to grow the business, it's about creating multiple streams of income, and to do that via some really strong strategic partnerships that we can build. So, we're looking to help some guys create a buy, build, hold model. So you actually buy, build some properties and hold them, and we'll help find them and manage the projects as a service, sort of business there. And then we're also just sort of looking to team up with some other, I guess, like financial planners who are helping people build a goal to retirement. They're helping people come up with, say, a strategy to create $100,000 passive income in retirement, which does include obviously shares and other things. But we're looking at, okay, how can we help as a part of that and build a partnership with that planner, so we can then go and offer that to people, as well as we're looking to work with a couple of financiers, brokers, so we can come up with an offer around that as well. So for me now, it's about, we've got 20 projects running. There's a really strong, pipeline there that we need to manage with reasonable profit coming in the next sort of 12, 18 months as they finish. The new projects will be a high profit, so that will be good. And now, for me now, in the next sort of 12 months, the focus is on how do we build more streams of income into the business. So
with that buy, build, hold offering, could you have a trailing slice of the rental that they get?
Possibly could, I guess. Hadn't really considered it, but yeah, you possibly could. Yeah.
Well, I just think you kind of want to get a piece of the action for all the work that you've done, not just the short upfront effort, but then get a bit more of the long-term value.
Yeah, look, totally. I mean, it's an option, or I guess, do you build the property management business to manage all of those as a possibility? Yeah, it's a good point. We may look at that as a model, as a way forward, because we can help, with the stuff that we're doing now, we help people get into a project, sell one of the two properties out. They're left with a property that's got a really low LVR with a strong cash flow, and then they're therefore ready to go and do something again straight away, rather than buy a property, wait 5 or 10 years through a cycle. Which, if that's what you can afford, then that's where you got to start. But if you can afford to do development and sell a couple, keep a couple, then that's a far better result as well. So if we can help them do that, then yeah, there'll be some good cash flows coming in out of some of those properties. So yeah,
sounds good. Well, if people want to find out more about you or your company, where should they head to?
Good place to start is connect with me on LinkedIn. So we're pretty active on LinkedIn. Connect with us there, And then also we have a Facebook page, which is just Shane Hiscock Property Facebook page, and then our website, which is shanehiscockproperty.com.au. So you can find us at all those spots, and we put a bit of updates and some information out here and there. We try not to spam people. So.
And how long did it take you to come up with your business name?
Oh, ages. Yeah, I'm really good at creative business names. There was a real lack of anything else, actually. Do you know how it started? Actually, the actual business name is House Machine, because I did a joint venture with a architect in the very beginning to create a prefab housing, which was hence the House Machine kind of name, which was, get a few standard designs and be able to prefab houses. This was like 8 years ago now. I think we're way too early, and everything was getting built offshore though, so nothing could be financed. So that didn't work. And then, look, I'm not. I got to say, I'm not great at business names.
I sometimes tell people I build dream machines when they ask me what I do.
Dream machines.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the places that people have their dreams, their dream homes.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah, so it kind of intrigues them and they ask a bit more.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have another development company. It's called Aprivia, which is it's a combination of my daughter's names. So, but that's the one we'll sort of start to drive the development company through and do more of the boutique luxury developments in our own brand and our own name. This business will remain more like a service business, I guess. So, yeah.
And just quickly, what's your view on diversifying? Because it sounds to me like you've got a lot of things going on. I always try and stay focused on one particular thing and do that quite well.
Yep.
Obviously, you're able to juggle a few more projects or ideas.
Yeah, I just think that's how I started this business. I was very, very niche and very focused on one sort of thing, right down to one type of development, which was at the time splitter blocks. But what I realised is that markets change, things change, and I guess if you look at a lot of big businesses, they are diversified in some way. Because it gives them safety and it gives them, I guess, a buffer. And when one thing's not working, something else potentially is. So I think you can look at specialisation and niche in a lot of different ways. And for me, it's probably more around the type of client that we work with. That's our specialisation. So we're working with typically professionals in high-paying jobs who are time poor. That's really our niche and focus, is helping those guys out. Whether they're a bit younger or they're a bit further in their cycle, we're looking to help that specific type of client out in terms of their property needs. So, and then if you looked at the types of properties we're actually constructing, that's fairly niche at the moment. They're all very similar in terms of their end user market, so who they'd be sold to. So that's quite niche. Although they're different developments in different areas, the product type, i.e. the houses and townhouses that we're building, are at a certain spec level. So I think that's niched. So there for me, I feel we're still quite niche. We're not trying to be everything to all people. We're not particularly great at doing a development in Ipswich. It's far outside of our zone. Brisbane we know very well. We know 10 to 12, 12 Ks and inwards is our area. So I think, I'm all for being specific and all for sort of having some options inside that specific to keep things boiling along when other things might not be going so good. So, because if we just focused on splitters at a certain price point, we'd be out of business right now because everyone started paying too much for them. The land bank, the people land banking, and rightly so. Someone in Sydney who's just doubled their money in the last 5 years, that's anyone who owned a house in Sydney just about, who sees a property in Brisbane that's on 2 lots of land and it's 600K, says that's a bargain. Whereas for us to do a project, we might have needed to buy that for 520. So the guys from a different state often are buying these properties, paying more. If we just focus on that strategy, then we wouldn't be doing anything. So
I think that's interesting that you have structured your business around a customer group.
Yeah, and that's not by design either. That's just probably more by that's kind of the people we ended up attracting. It's the kind of people we end up like to work with, that we get along with, who, there's a mutual respect, and that's just like, I think that is another thing I've learned from IT in IBM I felt like we just had to work with any client that was a client of the company, whereas a lot of the time, it was more work and more effort and more difficult to work with certain types and personalities and that sort of stuff, where it was not a good service for either of us. It doesn't help anybody if I'm dealing with a client or a customer that's doesn't have the same values as I do. And likewise for them, they don't like dealing with me if they have different values than I do. It's just, you're just going to grate on each other, and you're actually doing each other a disservice. So I feel it very much comes back to the types of people you're working with.
Yeah, I love that saying from Warren Buffett that life's too short to work with people that you don't like.
Yeah, we have a bit of a rule around that. So yeah.
Very good.
And that's it. I agree.
Well, that's probably a good place to leave it. I'll let you get back to project management.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on the Property Developer Podcast.
My pleasure. It's been great. Have a great day.
See you later, Shane.
Cheers. See you. Bye.
Okay, there you go. A property developer that is taking his business to the next level. I think Shane is taking his developing business in a really interesting direction, and I'm sure it will be a success. It goes to show how far you can come in 5 or 6 years if you persist and continue to deliver value for people. I enjoyed my conversation with Shane, and here's 3 points that stuck out for me. 1. Take the time to expand your mind. I believe it is important that you keep your brain active by continually learning something new. That may be reading a biography, attending a seminar, or doing a formal course. It's a great way to expand your thinking, learn about alternative concepts, or just be inspired by what other people have achieved. If you're not improving, then you're going backwards, and there is so much awesome stuff to discover in this world. 2. Value your skills, abilities, and time. Shane talked about the lesson he is learning about valuing his skills and contribution. This is always good to remember, as you need to set how much you think you are worth. And following from my first point about expanding your mind, the more you learn, the more value you will be able to bring to the world, and thus charge for your value accordingly. And this also extends to your time. Use it well, and hang around with people that you want to emulate. Soar with the eagles, not forage with the turkeys. 3. Think about ways to better serve your customers by expanding your services. I like how Shane is looking to grow his business based on his existing customer needs. This horizontal and vertical expansion is a great method of understanding what your clients may need now, but also in the future, and helping them achieve it. Have you ever thought about how you might expand your business offering to service your existing clients? It might be worth jotting down some ideas about how you could. You never know what you might come up with. Alright, that's another show almost done. Thanks again for listening in. You can find out more about Shane via his LinkedIn profile or his Facebook page at Shane Hiscock Property. If you enjoyed the show, an iTunes rating would be awesome. Or head over to the Property Developer Podcast website and leave a comment. Otherwise, join me on Instagram at Property Developer Podcast as I share my pictures of property developer porn. So, until next time, may you squeeze on that extra unit. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas, and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.